Blog Talk Radio.
Could have been a wise man, at least I think I could, if I only read the book. Could have been a sailor, traveling near and far, if I only took the time to read the stars. But that's my story. It's the same old story. Could have been a rich man, a multi-millionaire, but something was always in the way. Someone was always there. So I tried to be a poor man, but when the winter came, my mind got so confused I couldn't remember my name. Well, that's my story. It's always the same old story. Running up and down this town, looking for clues with none to be found, trying to solve the mysteries of my life. Swore I saw an open door, lying here on this barren floor. Is the sky really falling, or am I just living my story? I could have been a shaman, Mr. PhD, but that kind of life just wasn't for me. So I tried to be a preacher, Mr. Religion Man, but I couldn't find the truth. I just couldn't understand. Oh no. It's always the same old story, running up and down this town, looking for clues with none to be found, trying to solve the mysteries of my life. Could have swore I saw an open door, lying here on this barren floor. Is the sky really falling? Up and down this town and looking for clues, trying to solve this mystery called life. Could have swore I saw an open door, lying here on this barren floor. Is the sky really falling, or am I just living my story?
Thank you for joining me here in Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I'm your hostess this evening. The music you were listening to at the beginning of the show is called Could've. It's by tonight's guest, Bruce Ciccarelli. And I want to extend a welcome to those that are listening tonight, whether you're returning because you've listened into the show before or whether this is your actual very first time listening. We are streaming live in 3 places outside of Blog Talk, which is TalkStream Live, StreamFinder, and PEN, also known as Pair Encounters Network. So thank you so much to all of those avenues for broadcasting our show as well. And I welcome everyone listening through there as well. I also appreciate tonight's guest, Bruce Ciccarelli, for bringing this great music to us this evening. So we're really going to be delving into that and his journey with his music. Here at Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, I look at the different ways that compassion exists in our lives how to remove our blocks, resistances, frustrations, and more. And some weeks I'm discussing different aspects of how compassion is in our life, how it affects our life, and the different areas of compassion. Some weeks I'm doing more exercises, practical implementations. Most of the times I've got guests on the show, and tonight's no exception to that. Of course, last year during the show we had Stephen Halpern, Peter Cater, just to mention a couple of the musical artists. Tonight we're going to be delving into Bruce Ciccarelli's work. And in my own work, also, what I do is focus on helping people find and use compassion in their everyday lives. I've created the Genesis Clearing Statement, and if you've missed that, you can certainly catch it in our archives. I've authored 4 books, the most recent being You, Me, Life, Dreams, and also its companion workbook, and then my first 2 books, Activating Compassion and its companion workbook. In addition, I've created the Compassion Tour, which is a multi-state nationwide tour, including workshops, retreats, seminars, book signings, and fundraising events. So look for that to be happening. Also, you can follow any live events going on through my event site, which is jessieandnicholsgeorge.eventbrite.com. Matter of fact, I am hanging out in the San Francisco Bay Area is where I'm coming to you from tonight. I'm out here getting ready to run an incredible weekend event here on the solstice, and also have more live events coming up in August. Will be the next one, and you can check those out as well. Just a reminder, if you enjoyed the show this evening, make certain you tell your friends, the family, significant others. You know, I find that whenever I'm sharing a show on Facebook, for example, I always get somebody that comes back and says, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about that in a long time, or I was just talking about that the other day, or that's just what I needed to hear. So you never know when you're really going to shift or change a life because of simply clicking share on something. And they can use the same link, by the way, to get into the show that you used to come into it tonight and listen to it at their convenience in the archives. Also, they can go to my website, jessieandnicholsgeorge1.com, and I've got a page there on the Main Street Universe tab that has all of the archived shows on it. As well, they can catch it in iTunes, tunein.com as a podcast, and it'll be up on my YouTube channel as well. So lots of options, just depending on what your flavor is for tuning in and listening into things. Before we get started, like I like to do on each show, I like to delve into the 72 Names of God, a book by Yehuda Berg. And I love Yehuda because he takes these bigger, complex concepts, like I do in my work with compassion, and he breaks them down to our everyday lives, what's happening in our everyday lives, and how do these things work and apply for us. And so tonight, each week I like to delve into a message for those that haven't listened before. And tonight what I'm getting from Yehuda is we have great escape. That's the common name of God we're dealing with tonight, great escape. And what he says here is little messages. We're in prison and we don't even know it. And the insight he provides on this is, prison, you ask? Unquestionably. We're hostages to the constant pressure to outdo friends and colleagues. We're in bondage to our reactive whims and self-absorbed desires. We're captive to our jobs and financial pressures. We're prisoners to other people's perceptions of us. We're incarcerated by our need for other people's acceptance. Want to break out? The ego is the foundation of all forms of misery. It compels us to convince others that we're right, even when we're wrong. And even when we know we're wrong, ego gives us the illusion that we act freely, but in reality, we are captive to its desires. When a person denies that he or she has an ego, well, that is just the ego hard at work, doing its job, patrolling the prison grounds. If an individual cannot recognize his or her own ego in a situation, the ego simply blinded the person by placing this individual into solitary confinement. Ego is a ball and chain that anchors us to the physical dimension and blocks our connection to spiritual growth. Yet it is only in the spiritual realm that true joy and fulfillment can be found. Meditation that he gives with this is, This name brings the greatest of all freedoms, escape from ego-based desires, selfish inclinations, and the me-first mentality. In their place, you gain life's true and lasting gifts, family, friendship, and fulfillment. And I think that that's an important thing. Now, the name that we have here, Great Escape being the common name, but the way this name is pronounced is Lamed Aleph Vav. And that's a very interesting one to come up because I think a lot of people with all the planetary retrogrades are feeling this need for great escape right now. They're feeling this confinement that Yehuda is talking about in this particular thing. And it's interesting because we talk about letting go of the ego, and that's a huge part of the shadow. And for those that didn't catch the interview that Greg Friedman did of me last Sunday night, you want to go catch that as well because we talked all about the shadow, which is a different way of releasing the ego. So go check that out. Also, for those that enjoy this message, you can go back and check on it throughout the week. I post it right after the show, so it's usually up within an hour on my page on the Main Street Universe tab, and that would be on my website, JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. Now, I want to give you a little something to reflect on before we head to break here. When was the last time you did deep reflection on yourself? What is the connection you have with id? What have you done for your id lately? And that's id as in our ego, by the way. So it's very appropriate that this message from Yehuda happened to show up tonight because it ties right in with our guest in this particular thought. Over the years, the id has gone in and out of positive and negative views about it. It has been judged, praised, and at times even forgotten. The id has been often associated with the ego in its negative image and has had a tough time breaking out of that stereotype. However, when we look at what the id is, it is simply self, not a hero or villain, simply self. Ironically, even many healers and practitioners do not take time to look at themselves. They help everyone else make their journeys, but don't take time to journey to their own self. This seems to happen with most people as they get busy in their lives, making ends meet, worrying about others' needs, and just surviving. We also have those that would prefer not to journey to themselves and consciously choose to avoid doing this. This is often because people are afraid of what they will find or don't want to or aren't ready to deal with this path of discovery. This journey can be pleasant at times and quite challenging at others. This is a journey that asks little, but what it asks can feel like so much. It asks you to be open, real, authentic, and be willing to look at all aspects in our life, not just the good times. So why look at the rest? Why look at what we deem negative? Because that is where we will also find some of our most amazing breakthroughs. It is where we find the light within us and where we learn of some of our greatest potential. Bruce Ciccarelli not only took a journey to his id, but then translated that journey into music and song. I love this as it is a way of storytelling and sharing an experience that just might resonate with others as well. He offers through his music the value of taking the journey to self. Now, I'm not saying everyone should write, record, and produce music. However, I do feel that it can be very valuable when going through such things to make note of them in some shape or form. It should be a method that resonates with you, and this could be a song, dance, a book, or just a diary that you keep personal to yourself. I've never been much of a journal person. However, my recent logs have shown me so much more than what I thought was there. Putting the journey to paper makes a connection that helps us to understand and benefit from the journey even more. What understandings have you received from taking a journey to your id? How have your journeys to the id helped you? And what has been your story that arose from your journey? This week, our guest focuses on a component of compassion that is related to the aspect in my books of, what about me? This reminds us that when developing a path of service, we need to also take care of ourselves. We need to take time to receive. And I'm going to take a short break, and when we return, I'm going to have Bruce Ciccarelli with us, and he's going to be sharing his work and the music he has created from his own spiritual journeys. And the song that I've got for you during the break tonight is called Lost in the Illusion. It's by our guest, and we're going to go ahead and cue this up here, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Something seems wrong, it's not quite the same. Something in your mind just isn't right. The vision in your eyes never lies, so they say, but the air all around you just isn't right. Look beyond the illusion. Look beyond the illusion. Even though the situation hasn't changed a bit, you know it's not like the day before. Before you believe what you just cannot conceive, don't lose the keys that open up the door. And look beyond the illusion. Look beyond the illusion. Don't be fooled by the passage of time. Don't be fooled by its rhythm and its rhyme. Don't be fooled and be led by the blind. It was yesterday when you heard the people say, and everyone around you agreed. But even though you knew that it just could not be true, majority of consensus rules the day. Don't get lost in the illusion. Don't get lost in the illusion.
And welcome back. You are listening to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I'm your hostess this evening. You were just listening to a song by tonight's guest, Bruce Ciccarelli, Lost in the Illusion. And you can check out more of his work at www.bruceliam.com. That's BRUCELIAM.com. And I'd like to bring on tonight's guest, Bruce. He is a musician, producer, writer. His music has been noted as carrying the style of Neil Young and Cat Stevens. After 10 years on the indie rock circuit, he returned to his roots of acoustic ballads and focusing on a solo career that incorporates the purity of the sound of the acoustic guitarist and a voice that can stand on its own. Bruce's debut CD, Finding Id, is a collection of songs that reflect a common journey, the journey to find ourselves. He is a seasoned veteran with over 2 decades of music experiences, fine-tuned in churches, choirs, rock bands, studios, and as a producer to other artists. We're going to be taking a look tonight at his work and music. And again, you can learn more about Bruce's work at www.bruceliam.com. That's BRUCELIAM.com. And let me go ahead and get Bruce's mic opened up here. Bruce, welcome to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour.
Well, hello, Jesse. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Can
you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So that's
okay.
Great. We're doing well. Perfect. And I just had a sound check from the chat room. I said, double check me because I see the bars on my phone are not as high as I would like them to be. So anyway.
So we've solved the problem.
I think so. I think it was my phone. And for those that are tuning in a little bit late, I'm on the road tonight, so I'm actually broadcasting from the San Francisco Bay Area in California. So it's a little bit different, and I'm enjoying being out here running events this weekend. Bruce, I would love for you to share with us a little bit more about who you are and how did you get into music?
Well, a nice little intro that you just had on me basically kind of said it all, so I'm not sure what to – I'm trying not to repeat everything that was already mentioned there, but I guess, a lot of the focus tonight's been about journey and all that, and I kind of reflect back on my journey here. And really I was kind of one of the, kind of a late bloomer in a sense. I really didn't get into guitar playing until I was in my late teens. I was probably about 17, 18 at the time. And from there, I just started. I picked up the guitar and started learning to play it. But when I started playing it, I got involved with my church choir at the time. So that got me active playing, and also got me, expanding on the ability to play, learning new chords, keeping rhythms, and all that kind of stuff. So the quality of my playing got better. And also, of course, the songs you're playing all have a spiritual connection to it, and keep you keep you attached to the choir. So to the church and to some sort of anchored in spirituality, I guess. Because then I would start doing masses and start singing, not just with choirs, but then start singing on my own, and then I eventually, like most people do, like most artists do, you find yourself writing music. And a lot of times when I was writing music, I really didn't know where the music was coming from, in a sense. Sometimes not quite sure where some of the lyrics were coming from when I would be writing them down almost. Sometimes you almost look at a song afterward and you go, what inspired that? And it's almost like an afterthought sometimes. But I just found myself writing, not sure where some of these words were coming from. And I don't know, I just find myself inspired to write music based on the idea that music does touch our emotions, and emotions are the language of the soul. So we have that connection with music, and a very deep connection with music, because I think it touches us, because we are spiritual beings. We are having this physical experience. We are this energy vibration. Aside from being an artist, my day job, I guess, is as a biology teacher and a physics teacher as well. So get a chance to kind of dabble between the physical and the energy in both those subject areas. So really been able to kind of bring that into my music writing, I guess.
I find that interesting, and you brought up some good points. Music touches the soul, and we've heard that phrase, I don't know how many times, along the way, that music touches the soul, and emotions are the language of the soul. But there's so much to that, because people wonder, why can't I manifest something in my life? Why can't I make this happen? And they get stuck, and music is the one thing that very quickly, very easily unsticks us for that very reason you mentioned. It touches the emotions. And unless we are open emotionally, we actually can't manifest things. We actually can't create, which is an interesting thing that yes. It opens
that comes from the...
Go ahead.
Oh, we got a little bit of a time delay here on our phones. Yeah, that's exactly it. I think it all comes down from the core belief of realizing, or at least for myself, I can't speak for other people, but I've come to the realization of the spiritual aspect of our beingness, and the energy aspect of our beingness, and like I said, within the world of physics and at the quantum level, and all of this stuff is very much supported, and all the new spiritual. I don't even know if it's called new spiritual writings anymore, but of course, people like your Eckhart Tolle and different authors like that are at least that I finally came across, started to really turn these ideas or help me make sense of these ideas, and that we are basically just an energy vibration. And when you realize that we're an energy vibration, it makes so much sense that we resonate with other energy vibrations, and it's that type of relationship. It's that type of I don't know. I guess a paradigm shift almost that for me it all just makes sense. It makes a lot of sense that we connect, or we have that feeling of connectedness, and we should, because everything is just energy vibrations, and that whole concept of resonance. That it just, anyways, it all makes sense. I gotta watch I don't get into a physics lesson here.
And that's okay. And actually, it does make sense. And when I had Stephen Halpern on a year ago on the show, and he talked actually a lot about that connection of how it affects the brain waves, and his music is a lot in that realm of it, and proving the test of how this has an impact, and it does shift. And of course, when our emotions get involved, there is that big aspect that once that triggers, it just opens the floodgates in there. So I think that there's very much a connection. And some people might initially go, music and biology, and really? But it does actually all come together well.
It's so, to me, it's a no-brainer, no pun intended, I guess. It's absolutely just a no-brainer, because I think it all starts off with the idea of and realizing that our human experience here isn't a physical one. Actually, it is a physical one, being spiritual beings having the physical experience, and with that, it's always I guess kind of hit me on some level, and that was actually goes with the song that you played just before you introduced me, the song "Lost in the Illusion," which is kind of the title track to my last CD, Beyond the Illusion. And that's the whole concept of, we enter this life, basically. We're born as this open sponge, ready to take on, learn, and experience all of these different things, and then this stuff that we call life. And somewhere along the way, as we grow, as we age, the social programming that we get hit with, the complexities of how we grow up, where we grow up, the influences on us, just make that box shrink smaller and smaller and smaller, and we lose that connection, or we lose the reaction, the reality, I guess, of that we actually have power, we actually have the ability to make choices, and therefore create your own experience. And we slowly lose that, and as we get back to rediscovering that we do create, our thoughts are creative, our emotions are creative, then we start to realize we're no longer powerless, we become powerful, as we start to realize that we can create our next moment and create our next experience. It's kind of a shift in thinking, because our social programming, I don't think, really supports that type of thought.
You bring up an excellent point, and that is one of the things I'm often stressing in my work. You always have a choice. The world could be falling down around you, and you have a choice to be angry or to wallow in misery or to find peace. And you may not be able to control everything in your world, but you always have a choice of what you're going to do with what's there and how you perceive it. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up, and that so many times, yes, we're programmed to react emotionally or through thoughts a certain way, and yet we have, again, that, as you say, that choice to create our thoughts and our feelings, and it's up to us to become proactive in it. And it is a big shift I see for people when they're on their journey, because they are so used to just hanging loose. And, you know, you mentioned in your work, and when I was writing this up, and I was thinking back on the days, and it's like I just loved listening to Cat Stevens. He was like one of my old, and Neil Young, and that whole era just brought an amazing thought-provoking realm of music. And I'm going to add in there that there's a touch of somebody else, and I mean it in the most favorable way. I'm going to prelude it with that. Okay. And that is Jim Morrison. And your vocals, when I was listening to your music, and there's an aspect there that the way you carry some of your tunes and the uniqueness in your voice, it really, there's a couple of songs that just stood out to me.
Thank you very much.
In that realm. And matter of fact, the song that I heard that in is one that I've got uploaded in our system to play, which is The World Inside. And it's just, there was something about, his voice, when I connected this, Jim Morrison's voice, that has this ability to transcend you into an experience. And that's what I picked up on this song. So I'm going to play that for everybody, and we'll see what you have to say about that song when we come back from it.
Tell me, what do you see?
And we are working with Bruce Ciccarelli tonight, for those of you that are just tuning in. And Bruce is we're sharing his music and his journey. And that song was actually called The World Inside by Bruce. And we're discussing the different sounds and vocals and influences on Bruce, and I'm not sure he was expecting me to throw that in.
Actually, there's a couple of things that came to mind when you mentioned that, and that's people always ask you or ask as a songwriter, or what the first thing out of people's mouths is, what type of music do you play, or what do you write, or who do you sound like, or whenever you're approaching anybody, you're trying to get gigs and stuff like that, and it's very hard to define yourself. So it's always nice to get information from other people on how they view it. So making that reference to Jim Morrison, right? That works for me. It's funny though when you played that particular song, because that song really goes, in terms of the writing of it and the words of it, it really goes with your whole theme of activating compassion in the midnight hour. That whole song, The World Inside, is about not being judgmental and recognizing that we don't know what's going on internally. We project a certain external form to people, but we really never know what's really going on inside, and there's a whole world that person is living on the inside, and one of the bases of compassion is to make that recognition, to make that connection, and to realize that what you see may not be what your reality of the situation isn't their reality of the situation. And so to build on compassion, to build our own compassion throughout our own experience, we need to be cognizant of that. We need to recognize that.
And that's a really important point to make. And I noticed our producer, Daniel, is in our show tonight, and he commented in the chat room that he says he's a musician, by the way, creating his own album right now. And he says, I say semi-acoustic, psychedelic, holistic, digital, earthy space rock with a Celtic flair. So
I think we covered everything there.
I think we just about covered the whole thing, summed up by indie rock.
Yeah.
And I think you bring up a great point on a couple of different levels, because I actually talk about that point that you were just mentioning in my book, Activating Compassion, that just because we see things one way doesn't mean somebody else is seeing it that way. And when we can look at things from their eyes, we can oftentimes see what they're seeing. And it's important to take that trip within. It's important to understand what our world is inside of us, who we are, what that encompasses. But it's also very important, as you mentioned, to listen to the comments that we're getting from others, because they are seeing things that we're not necessarily seeing. And I'm getting a lot of that these days, where a friend of mine recently said, I'm just reflecting back to you. And what he was sharing was it felt so big and so magnificent, that I was like, wow. And it almost made me like, what do I do with this piece? And it was exciting and everything at the same time. And then again today, I was sitting and chatting with a friend of mine here in the Bay Area, actually somebody whose music we use a lot on the show, Claire Hadeen. And she was reflecting some things back, and it's really a powerful experience, I think, when you sit back and allow that reflection and open yourself to what somebody else has to share.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, we are, our whole existence is a relative existence, and our whole experience is all relative to what's around us. And so we only develop a conscious idea of what's around us by having some form of relativity around us. We only have some form of some mental construct of what warm is, if you have some construct of what cold is. So we live within this relative world, and so that goes down to every aspect of our life. You know, we sometimes think that we're projecting a certain image out, and sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. Everything is within the realm of the relative. It was interesting earlier on. You were talking about the ego and the whole shaping of the ego, and again back to one of the second song that you had played from my CD, the Lost in the Illusion, and that again, that's kind of bringing up the whole idea that, you know, we build up this ego through our social programming and the way we interpret everything around us. And you also mentioned something else which I was chuckling at to myself. And the first CD that I wrote was the title was Finding ID. So it's all about that journey to find yourself, go beyond the ego, go beyond that, and find your true spiritual self. And there's a lot of I'm connecting a lot of dots at the other end of the phone line here, with a lot of things that have been said so far tonight.
Well, that is an interesting piece, and you know, your work, from what I understand, is really, there's a lot there that is related to your own personal journeys that's in your music.
Yeah, and for me, that's all I can write. I don't know what else. I sometimes the whole songwriting process is really quite a I don't know. I wish there was a songwriting for dummies book out there. I don't know how you would put it down, and even yourself as writing in the form of a book. It's how do you do it? There are times when you sit down. The whole process a lot of times just is I sit back sometimes in wonderment, because there's times when I can sit down, grab my guitar, and absolutely nothing will come out. I will have all the best of intentions and just stare at a piece of blank paper, strum a few chords. Absolutely nothing will come out. And then other times things just flow through. There's been times where I've actually gotten up in the middle of the night because I just this downpour of information came, and literally jumped out of bed, came downstairs into I've got my own little home studio, and in about 15 minutes had the song basically written, lyric-wise, music-wise. It's the song on my first CD, on the CD Finding It. It's called Alone in My Mind, and I actually have a YouTube video out on that song. And so sometimes things flow, sometimes they don't. And it's a very interesting It's great when it does. It's very interesting when it does. But I think when it does, it's also a reflection of kind of your openness to the energies around you. I think that when sometimes we get closed, and we for whatever reasons that are going on in our lives, we close up to that flow of energy, and the creativity goes with it. At least that's what I find in my own experience. It's opening up that creativity through opening up that energy flow, that universal flow, that universal connectedness with the energies that surround us. That's actually, and just recently I had an experience with that on a song which I just released called Carry On, and it's going to be a song which is going to be on my new CD coming out hopefully next summer. And this song, I was just struggling with a few words, and it was actually quite interesting. I went to a Reiki treatment for the first time, actually, and after the whole treatment was done, the person who was doing it said, "Oh, by the way, your spirit guide said to change the lyric, make it, the way they phrased it. There's a couple of lyric lines in there, so just make them questions rather than the way you have it." And I said this big grin on my face because I knew what they were talking about, but she was kind of looking back at me and said, "I have no idea what that means," because they had no idea of the song that I had written. And so I went back and took this last line in each of the verses and turned it, and because the song is called Carry On, it's a song about hope and inspiration. It was about cancer survivors who are managing to continue on even after going through the various obviously hardships that they're going through. And at the end of the verse, it was, "Can I carry on?" and in the form of a question. And it's just getting back to this whole songwriting idea. It's where did the ideas come from? I don't know. And why do they sometimes flow so easily? Sometimes, other times they don't flow at all. I don't know. It's interesting. It keeps life interesting, anyways.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because there are so many people that experience this in different ways in their life, Bruce, and we have those times when it's all flowing and times when it's not flowing. And this is something that I really try to get people to realize, that if it's not flowing, there's another piece that we need to look at. We might need to take a break. We might be on pause until something comes our way. That we need to value the rest and the pauses as much as we need to value the flow. But when the flow is there, we want to jump in and ride with it. So when the doors are opening, we don't want to go, "Oh, I don't got time for that."
I really like what you said there. I like what you said there about the pause and respect the pause. You know, sometimes we're going so much. You ask, why is this not happening? Why is this not happening? Well, sometimes that is the answer. It's not happening because it's not supposed to be happening at this point in time. And I had this bring this back to the songwriting with my next CD. I was having a lot of blockages for all this stuff, and then I finally just kind of surrendered to it, and or at least tried to surrender to it anyways, and realizing, saying, maybe there's a bigger purpose here for it's just not ready to come out right now. So I've gotten to the point where the songs are now written, but now it's a matter of getting through the recording process, and that flow just isn't happening. So I'm hoping that there's a reason for it. Sometimes surrendering to all of that kind of stuff, the whole concept of surrender is sometimes I don't know. I guess we're not. I don't know about yourself, but I know that I don't think I'm. That's one of the stumbling blocks that I need to kind of get over. It's that total surrender to forces that are beyond us, I guess.
Well, and I do know a few different things, and our producer had mentioned too. He's gotten things in the past, like a melody from a dream, in there too. And I think again, that's all part of that flow. That yes, that surrender, as you phrase the word, and the word is surrender. And so many times we think of surrender as being weak, as we save it for the last option. But if we would start with surrender in our work or in our path or our process, it would be so much more powerful. And I think that when those blocks are coming up, it can also be an indication, well, of many things, but it can also be an indication that we're trying to force our will in what may not be the best direction or the best timing. Now, of course, there's always planetary influences and those sorts of timings as well. But when we're willing to surrender, it's not a giving up, it's not a weakness, but it is agreeing to co-create, I believe, with divine. Yes, with divine force. So if we're willing to do that and we turn over, we actually remove the barriers of the third dimension, and then it can go. I was actually in this discussion earlier today a little bit with somebody who was trying to make a decision on something, and I know she's been trying to make a decision for a long time because I remember catching something on a Facebook page or something a while back, and we were sitting and talking, and I made a comment. I said, well, maybe you're not supposed to make a choice between these things. Maybe they're supposed to work together. And it was like you could see the light bulbs go off. And it's like, that's why I haven't been able to move forward, because I was trying to choose or say I could only have one thing or this sort of stuff. And in reality, I wasn't supposed to have just one thing. I was supposed to find a way to bring it together. So I think respecting those pauses, it's like giving your body rest so that it can come back with a greater strength. So that's surrender. I'm really glad you used that word, and I'm really glad you brought that up. And I'm going to go ahead with the song Finding Id right now, but I want to come back and have you share a little bit more about Carry On, because I know that that's a very sweet song for you. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. This is Finding Id by our guest, Bruce Ciccarelli. and welcome back. You're listening to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, and tonight we are talking with Bruce Ciccarelli, and that was his song Finding Id from his work, and certainly you can find out more of his work, by the way, at bruceliam.com. That's www.bruceliam.com. And Bruce, I really find that a unique song, and that there's just a delving in. There's a very, I think, almost humbling and awakening factor in listening to the lyrics and the music of that song.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the inspiration of that one came one time where it came across. I was with my wife, and we were in Ottawa, up in here in Canada, and we're walking down one of the main roads, and of course you have different people, street people, and for some reason one of these people just kind of stuck in my head, and the next time I was writing this whole concept of how we interact, how we respond to others. Really isn't so much about them, it's about us. It kind of tells us, where we are. Where if you're running away from that person, what is it that you're really running away from? What are they representing? And whether it's a person or whether it's a situation, it's going, whatever you're running away from is going to pop up again. So we find ourselves spiritually in this journey as we interact with others. And there's a video that I have on YouTube on this song, and it was purposely done. A buddy of mine who did the video for me or with me, we purposely did it in black and white to kind of bring across that type of essence of trying to find yourself, and everything's still kind of in black and white. You just haven't quite figured it all out. Hopefully you can check out that video on YouTube. I'm very proud of that video. Actually, I really like the way that video came across visually and connected with the words and the music of this particular song. It gave me more reason to also make for myself biblically the phrase "I sent you nothing but angels." It kind of, for me, brings that phrase to a new light. You start to realize that everybody around you, as we were talking before, is relative to you, and they're there to bring you more experience. They're there to help you along your journey in some way, shape, or form. And I think that this song in particular was kind of a reflection of that. I think that's what was going on in my head when I was writing it. Like I said, sometimes you write things on paper and you're not sure where they came from until you kind of analyze it after. Try not to get too analytical when you're writing.
Well, and I think that that's a big point, because it really is. We don't always have to understand where all it's coming from. It's about opening to receive it, and that happens whether you're a musician or a healer or whatever your avenue is, writing or anything else. And, there's a couple of things to it. I had a very good friend who has since passed on a few years ago, and he worked very strongly with homeless in the Phoenix, Arizona area, and his charity work and his work continues to go on, his mission work in that. And it definitely brought back those thoughts of me with the times I shared with him, and how many times we see that person, and like you say, it's about how we respond, because we oftentimes forget that we could be that person. We could be there tomorrow or next week or next year, and that there may be whatever spiritual reason that put them there, or whatever reason put them there. And even if we don't agree with somebody, and I talk about this in my books as well, I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because, even if we don't agree with somebody, and even if we don't like what they're saying and these sorts of things, it still comes down to how are we going to respond? How are we going to be there in the moment? And just because you respond favorably doesn't mean you have to hang out and be their best buddy, but it's an awakening of yourself.
And that's perfect. Exactly. I bring this up sometimes to my students in class in the same type of storyline. I say, what's so special about when you're walking by that homeless person and you reach into your pocket and you give that person $1, and all of a sudden you feel so good. I said, why do you feel good? So you gave that person $1. Big deal. What's the big deal? I think it's because it's in that moment when you're giving that you realize that you have, so you realize that by giving this person money, even though it's a very small monetary amount, you realize that you realize the gratitude that you have, you realize the blessings in that moment that you have going on in your life, and you realize that I am able to do this. I'm maybe not quite as bad off as I thought, and I have this to give. So you become a giver, and you get joy out of that, obviously, and that can only be done, and that can only be experienced when you pass that homeless guy. So if that homeless person wouldn't have been there, you wouldn't have had that experience. So in a lot of ways, you should say thank you to him for allowing him to allow you to give him a buck.
and you're right about that. Yeah, you're right about that. It gives you that opportunity to tune into your own abundance, as well as that opportunity to realize that some part of yourself is in that space, which you mentioned, because everybody to a certain extent is a mirror and a reflection. And what are you going to do with that part of yourself? As a matter of fact, I saved that. It was a little over a week ago, week and a half, almost 2 weeks ago, where I saved a kitten from, well, not a kitten, it's a full-grown cat, from going over a waterfall and starving to death. And when I was talking with a friend of mine, I was like, somewhere in all of that, I felt like I was saving myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same aspect that, when we do those little things, it's about also helping that inner piece of yourself that is that, realize it's okay and it's going to be taken care of. Now, you were talking a little bit earlier about a song, Carry On, and you were saying that this was completed or something during a massage session, but that it also relates to people with cancer and some other things. Expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a song that's going to be on my new CD, which is, as I said, which is written. Now I just got to get it recorded. But I wrote this song, almost a year ago now. The song is called Carry On. Got a video which I've just done. It's just got a little bit more editing, so it should be out on YouTube in about another couple weeks, if maybe another month. But the origin of it was one of these situations where I'm not sure because I'm up in Canada here, up close by Ottawa, the Cancer Society here has an annual Relay for Life. Is that an event that you're familiar with?
I've heard of the Relay for Life.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was just more of a local thing or something we do up here in Canada or what, but we were, the school that I work at, we were doing our own, hosting our own annual Relay for Life for the Cancer Society, and it's one of these, it's one of these events where obviously it's for raising money, but people, you stick around all night. It starts at 6 o'clock at night and it goes till 6 o'clock the next morning, and you continually walk. You form groups, and you walk continually in support or in recognition of people who've gone through cancer and cancer surviving. And we also had some speakers who were talking about their experience, and just some survivors, the survivors, whether it was they themselves who had the cancer, or family members who are the survivors of people who they've lost to cancer. And after you've heard all these different stories, again, we're talking about the songwriting process. This was these speeches were given maybe about a month before we did the actual event. It was kind of a little bit to kind of hype up the event a little bit, and I just went home that night, and I was really just reflecting on a lot of these. And again, I picked up my guitar and started had a couple of tunes that I had, a couple of melodies that I had going on in my head, and out came the pen and paper, and out came the words the one night, and I would say maybe in an hour, and then I kind of put it down, and then the next night I finished it up. So within a very short period of time, within 2 days, I had the song written, and luckily I have my own home studio here. I have a student who a very good saxophone player, and so I had him come in and play on it. I had a couple other students come in and play some drums on it and some keyboard on it. That's a little string section, and so it went basically from conception of the idea to on CD within 2 weeks, and we used that as the theme song for the event, and it was very well received, and it's a song that I'm quite proud of. It's a song of hope. It doesn't have to necessarily be cancer. It's just a song used in general, both for hope and inspiration, and just as the title says, it's all about being able to coming to the realization that you can carry on, and so that's a little bit of the story behind that. And as I said, I've got a video coming out on that in about a month from now.
And that is, I think it's such an important message, no matter what somebody is dealing with or without the additional physical aspects going on in things. And you brought back home a point that we mentioned earlier, which is about when it's flowing through you, open up to that flow. Keep that pen and paper handy. Whatever it is, I'm now doing that, constantly keeping that handy so that I can take my notes and do those things. And when the timing is right, it's just going to happen, and it will flow through so easily and so effortlessly, and it just comes right through. We're going to go ahead and listen here to Carry On, which is the song Bruce was just talking about, and we'll be ready with a YouTube video in about a month.
There's a light that's shining, and there's no denying it's burning bright in my soul. There's a light that's shining, and the warmth it's providing is bringing hope to me. Can I carry on? There's a song that's singing, and the words it's bringing are ringing loud in my mind. And the song that's singing keeps me believing in dreams of happy times. Can I carry on? strong. 'Cause together we're gonna make it through. When the night turns into dawn, it's another victory won. And I know I can carry on. Break those chains that bind me. Break those walls that confine me to a world spinning out of control. Another voice has spoken to heal this heart that's broken with words of hope to carry on. And if you feel you can't go on, I'll be there to be strong. 'Cause together we're gonna make it through. When the night turns into dawn, it's another victory won. And I know I can carry on. You can't go on, I'll be there to be strong. 'Cause together we're gonna make it through. When the night turns into dawn, it's another victory won. And I know I can carry on.
This is Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and tonight we have guest Bruce Ciccarelli on our show, and we're sharing his music and his journey through his music tonight, giving you some insights on that. And that song was called Carry On. If you missed any part of what his journey was related to that song, I do hope you'll go back and listen to it in the archives. You certainly want to hear some of the stories behind the music on this because they are quite powerful. I love that song, Bruce, by the way. Thank
you so much.
We talked about emotion earlier, and emotion definitely comes through, and it definitely has the inspiration that comes out of that song. And
thank you very much.
So,
just for anybody who's listening out there, that song is free right now. For the next month on my website. In fact, all my music's free on my website. If you just go to my website, as you've been mentioning, bruceliam.com, there are some icons that you can click on for the music. It'll take you to an online music store, and everything's on a free download for the next probably a month, I guess, probably. So if anybody wants to download any of that stuff, please do so and share it with people.
I encourage people to take advantage of it because we're not going to get to all of his songs tonight on this show. And there's a nice variety on there, and it's great listening music, to say the least. Now, Bruce, you also have a song that you mentioned to me earlier that you wanted to make sure I had uploaded into the system. So I'm looking forward to hearing what the story is behind it. And that song is called Angel.
Yes. Another one of those songs where who, what, how, where these words come from. not sure. I do know that once you play it and once people have a chance to listen to the words, the typical response is always going to be, and it was when I first started playing it for people, who is that for? And naturally, people are thinking, well, you wrote that song for your wife, and everything like that, because it's called Angel, and it's well, you'll see in lyrically, it's basically it represents a person. It's not a person. It's the embodiment. It's kind of the embodiment of a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of people who just kind of, I was kind of reflecting on different qualities that different people in my life have come in and out, and some of those qualities of these people who were able to basically live in that moment of now, that sacred moment, and that person who always has that smile in the rain type person, the person that says if it's going to rain out today, well, I guess the flowers are going to grow better, and it was Angel is not a person. It's kind of an embodiment of all of those people that we tend to, that I've come across anyways, that have those types of qualities.
I love that you are approaching from that aspect, because I think there are these different words that we use along the way, whether it's angel or something else, and it really is about the embodiment of a type of energy. Names are a fascinating thing, how we use them, but each name, of course, has its own energy, its own meaning, its own aspect to it. So I find that fascinating, that it's not about a specific person so much as the energy. And this is, as we grow and we develop, and we, if you want to say, evolve ourselves, we move more and more into that concept and that aspect of thinking. We don't have to have so many specific names, because we move into the embodiment of energy. So I love that you took that approach. I think that's,
thank you very much.
Powerful. Very powerful.
And it goes with once again the theme of the whole CD, which I didn't try to write a themed CD, but I found that all the songs were kind of coming out with that theme, and again, the illusion that created, and that we create, and we need to, once you look beyond it, you start to realize that we're not the physical mass that we see, or the spiritual energy that's walking around, and we can connect to that. So everything's kind of snowballs under the same umbrella.
And themes are interesting because they show up whether you are the person that's to share the message or whether you are the person receiving the message in life. Themes come to us because it's trying to get that bigger concept. It's trying to say, here's where I need you to focus my energy, or here's the message I would like you to share. This is the creative source, divine energy, that's saying, let me come through you so that I can get this message out. And things do happen, I find, oftentimes in patterns and themes, and it's a great way to gain insight. And I imagine as a musician and an artist, I know my work is changing all the time. And one time it might be one theme, and another time it might be another theme. And so we want to roll with that because that is part of our evolution. We're going to go ahead and play for you that song that Bruce was just talking about, Angel, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
She was never bothered by the words people say. In fact, she just laughed at them. She was never bothered by the lines on her face. In fact, she never even noticed them. Passing the day, each moment as it comes, never worried what tomorrow brings. If it rained all night and the ground was turned to mud, she'd just make other plans. But when someone walked in the room, she always met them with a smile, 'cause she knew they'd only be together for a little while. On Friday night, she'd party with her friends, but she was greener than the rest of them. If they said the world was gonna end today, she'd say we got 24 hours. When the magazines asked the questions to find a color, she would always just answer white. The air around her was never too cold, too dark or thin, and answers never simply wrong or right. But when someone walked in the room, she always met them with a smile, 'cause she knew they'd only be together for a little while. She was angel. Philosophy, her creed was written in her eyes. She was alive. She never knew why the color of the sky was blue, and she never really cared. She just gaze and marvel at the clouds and become one with the air. But when someone walked in the room, she always met them with a smile, 'cause she knew they'd only be together for a little while. She was angel.
This is Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. We were just listening to the song Angel by tonight's guest, Bruce Ciccarelli. And, you know, Bruce, every time I listen to that song and I listen to the lyrics, there are so many things that run through my head. Those of the people that have known me, that's become a term that has been used for me over the years due to a near-death experience that I had. And it's such an interesting way, I think, for us to frame our mind. It reminds us, as you say, it's this energy that knows how to look at what's positive in the situation. It doesn't mean that nothing challenging or frustrating or things ever happen, but our perspective definitely influences our experience of the situation.
Sure. And sometimes in the in the field of psychology or whatever, it's kind of more thought of it as positive thinking. And to me, it's more than just positive thinking. It's realizing. It's the realization that everything is once again illusionary. And so what's happening in front, you have a choice to on how you want to interpret those events. And so that's it's a stronger level than just kind of a positive thinking type of approach. I've got a video of that one coming out in a couple of months too. That's right now in the film editing process right now. So that should be out in a couple of months as well.
How exciting. I'm going to have to stay tuned for these videos because I really want to see the visual that is going with these sounds and these music. And it really is. I mean, I love there was one lyric in there that just really jumped out at me tonight, which was, the world could end, something like the world could end tomorrow, and she would say we have 24 hours left. And it's that thing that you can't sit there and worry about what somebody else is telling you. Take it in and then decide what you're going to do with it. And you can't sit there going, oh, my gosh, the world's going to end tomorrow. What are you going to do with that 24 hours? Because we sometimes forget that it only takes a minute to change the world from ending to the world to living. It's amazing what we can do in 24 hours.
Exactly. And once again, it's all about perspective.
Very much so.
I find myself writing a lot about angels. Seem to be popping up a lot because on my next CD there's a song titled "Nothing But Angels." So that'll be. I don't know if I'm got this locked into this theme or something. I'm not sure. But it's also interesting. Actually, we're talking about this whole concept of angels and therefore. This energies and stuff like that. On my Facebook page, where I have it's the band Facebook page. There's a picture that I put on there from probably maybe about a year and a half ago, and it's in my photos section. And it has a really interesting story because the reason I put it up there was because it's a really awesome picture, and the reason it's so awesome is because I'm playing on stage, and a friend of mine took a picture of me playing, and she took it with her camera, and then she also took it with my camera. And on my camera, it was just me playing. On her camera, right on top of my hands on my fretboard was this very clear orb. It's not even it's not even faint. It's just this beautiful, beautiful marble-looking white, perfectly spherical orb, and it's not anything that has to do with the lighting that was on the stage. It has nothing to do with anything else. It was just an energy presence. I have a couple of pictures on my Facebook page where orbs have shown up. With her camera, which is kind of rather interesting, kind of flows in with this whole discussion that we've been having tonight.
It does, and I think, too, sometimes, like a lot of things in our life, we externalize angels so much. We don't believe that we're in that same realm or that connection, and yet we could activate this angel energy within us at any point simply by taking these different perspectives, simply by shifting how we're seeing something. And that's really how we make those connections, whether it's an angel connection or whether it is a connection to the divine or whatever it is. And I could easily see with your work you bringing in probably some new awarenesses with angels, with those very kind of concepts that make them more tangible to people, more active.
I hope so. I hope so. They keep showing up, which is rather interesting. Sometimes very, very clearly, other times not so clearly. And actually, it's kind of to tie it all back in with that song "Angel." The reason it kind of came to mind about the picture was because when I had written that song, one of the people that was kind of in that song, in the persona of Angel, was my mom, and she had passed away about 4 years ago, and so it was after I released the CD that suddenly these orbs started showing up in my pictures. So it's a rather interesting connection with I believe my mom. But anyways, that's probably for another show.
Well, we can always delve into things, but I think it is important, and it goes back to something that you started the show with, and that is music touches emotions. And where emotions are open, we get the opportunity to experience these different energies through it. And it just goes back to some of your other work of being able to say, with those pictures, for example, nothing changing but the camera, so to say, that these lights and these energies are around us constantly. And that when we step onto our path, whether that's music or writing or whatever it is for us, even just learning, that they start to show up and we can start to become more aware of them. And when we're operating in this honor and this respect of bringing things out, that they are there working with us.
Sure. I mean, we in our essence, we are basically this big radio kind of radio receiver, receiving various frequencies, various energy frequencies, and those energy frequencies are how we resonate with the concept of an emotion. I think emotion, the E being energy in motion. I think we resonate with this. A lot of times we look at emotions from a biological point of view, and we attribute it to hormones and all this kind of stuff. But I think that those are kind of those are the after effects of the reception of the energy. It's when we're responding to the energies. That's when we have these different emotional releases hormonally, and so it's that connection that we're making, just like a radio. You turn the frequency dial and you tune into all these different energies that are traveling throughout the room. You could be sitting in your room. I try to use this type of analogy with in my classroom a lot of times when I'm trying to get this point across. And within the room are all kinds of energies going across, like you said, light energies, sound energies. But using the analogy of a radio. You've got maybe a country song, you've got a rock song, you've got a talk radio going, you've got all these things going on, and you're totally oblivious to all of these things. But by tuning in the frequency, tuning in the radio to that proper one frequency, you can now experience and bring into your reality that particular song, and then by tuning it just a little bit differently, you can now experience totally different type of song, and it's that type of analogy, that type of visualization, I think, that is what's going on. We attune to the various frequencies around us, and we do have, coming back to some of the earlier stuff we were talking about, we can control that, or at least once we start to understand it, then we can start to learn to control what frequencies we want to actually attract to ourselves, and what frequencies we want to attune to, which brings us back to the song Angel too. Here's a situation, what energies do you want to attract to? What energies do you want to not just receive but give off yourself? And that's, I don't know, it's just a new way of that's the way I kind of look at things. I think that's why it comes out in my music that way.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way to express it, because I think that people aren't always thinking about that. It's kind of like, this is my emotion, this is the space I'm in, this is what I'm feeling right now. And they forget to think about wherever they're at. Yes, it's important to honor it, it's important to respect it, it's important to pay attention to it. And then at the same time, though, it's also important to consider what you're sending out there. Exactly. As you say, what you're surrounding yourself with, what you're sending out there, because whatever you send out is going to come back to you magnified. Whatever you're surrounding yourself with is what you're going to draw into your life. And these are all powerful emotions that set this up for us. So,
and they certainly are very powerful, and it's a beautiful power. It's a power that everybody has, and therefore, when they start to come to that realization, they start to learn how to use that power, learn how to use it to create your next experience, to attune to the frequencies that you wish, to attract to yourself the frequencies that you want to experience. So you don't have to be sitting in the depths of despair. You can, or you can, if that's what you decide to do. I mean, you can attune to those frequencies, and the universe will give you exactly what you're asking for. And that type of reception of universal energy, of a source. There's a lot of different words that are being tossed out nowadays to try to explain all of that kind of stuff. But it all comes down to those energy vibrations, those energy frequencies, which we know through quantum physics that everything right now is down to string theory and all these kinds of things, which is basically the whole concept of vibrational energies. Everything that we look at as being a mass, everything that we look at as being physical, really is just a vibration of energy. So everything becomes very interconnected. Everything really starts to make sense. It's not just a way of thinking. It's not just a new way to try to explain things to people. I think people have got to realize the essence of what we are, and if you realize that the essence of what you are is an energy vibration, then everything else kind of falls into place. You're going to attract those energies and give off those energies that you are in fact attuned to, that match with your frequencies.
Absolutely, that's a huge piece. Now, I would love for you, because even though we're not quite at the close of the show, we're getting close, and and I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the song that we're going to be closing out the show with in a little bit later here, and that is the song Solstice. Give us a little insight about that one, because here we are, it's summer solstice, the next 2 days, and so where did that inspiration came from?
Well, again, I'll preamble all that with saying there's a YouTube video, which actually is sitting on my computer right now. I just have to upload it within the next, I'm not sure when, but like we were saying, I just haven't had the feeling that it's not time yet, but I do have a video on that. But yeah, the song is called Solstice, and it was really kind of a reflection on trying to explain relationships, and how relationships have kind of a cyclical rhythm to them that very similar to the seasons have a cyclical rhythm to them as well. As we say, you have the ups and downs in a relationship. Well, that it's natural that is going to happen in relationships, to have ups and downs, because everything in nature works in that same type of cyclical flow of energy. And as we go from one season to the next, we have a better appreciation right now for the summertime coming, because you've gone through the wintertime. And without that contrast, you don't have that maybe as much of an appreciation for it. And then you have an appreciation for the wintertime as the summertime starts to go off, because you have that contrast and you have that ebb and flow of the energies. And that happens in our relationships, whether that's romantic relationships, whether that's friendship relationships. they have their ups and downs, and it's natural that they're going to have their ups and downs. Sometimes people panic when, they go through through periods of downtime in their relationships. It's like you have to have those are natural. You can't have the up parts in the relationship unless you have the down parts, and so I mean that is the flow that happens in nature, and it makes sense that that's also going to be the flow that happens in our relationships with other people.
And I think that is such a good point to bring out, and that kind of comes back to some of the things you said earlier. It's about the perspective we choose in that, because we can either see these as really horrible down spots along the way, kind of like the winter solstice is the dark time of the year, or we can look at it and say, here we are at the summer solstice. It cast our biggest, greatest shadow, so that we can see it and get to something even better, that we can keep evolving to that next step, which happens with the cycles and the seasons and the flow. And, it's not that the others are the most horrible things. There are opportunities to learn. There are opportunities to grow the relationship. And I think if we can take some of those perspectives, then we can embrace those ebbs and flows a little bit more for what they really are, which is growth.
And once again, there are opportunities, the opportunity there, just like with nature, how the seasons change, and it's the opportunity for life and death, for growth and reproduction in so many different species. All other animals are so in tune to the seasons, and their whole reproductive lifestyles are set to that, and we as a human species are very kind of disconnected from that, or probably are maybe unaware of how maybe we are connected to it, and maybe have to become more aware of that, and it becomes almost a perfect analogy for the changing ebb and flow of our relationships.
Absolutely, and I think you just brought that together beautifully, right there with that.
I don't know what I said, so I'll have to listen back on that.
I do the same thing. I go right in the moment, and I have to sometimes just go back and listen to something and go, oh, that's what I said in that moment. So it flows through. People oftentimes do that. They say, what did you just say? And I'm like, I have no clue.
No, I didn't. Don't ask me to repeat it.
So, Bruce, if you could get one point across, I mean, you've got this wealth of music. We didn't get it all covered tonight, but we still have one of your songs coming up here. You've got several videos getting ready to be released, a couple that are out, so if people just look you up on YouTube, they're going to find those. Your website, bruceliam.com, www.bruceliam.com. How can you wrap this all up for me tonight as far as what your message is from your music?
Wow. I guess, again, we kind of came up throughout our chatting here, and that is we are not physical beings. We are spiritual beings. We are energy entities having a physical human experience. And I think when once I know that I came to that realization,